Fans thought Matt Brown would be on the show forever. Then suddenly, he was gone. No explanation, no closure. Today, we expose how his disappearance changed the Brown family, the show, and the truth viewers never saw. When a television series hinges on family, place, and the pull of authenticity, the sudden absence of one of its most visible members can feel like a structural crack running through its foundation. For viewers who had followed the Brown family's trials, triumphs, and on-screen tensions for years, the moment they realized Matt Brown was no longer part of the picture didn't register as a simple casting change. It registered as a rupture, one that altered storylines, shifted loyalties, and forced producers, networks, and even fans to confront the uncomfortable fact that reality TV's reality can be as fragile and contingent as any scripted drama. This is the story of how a single disappearance, shrouded in questions, speculation, and an uneasy mix of silence and explanation, reshaped a show that once thrived on the sense that viewers were watching lives unfold in real time. It's a cautionary tale about how the absence of answers can become as compelling as the presence of narrative, and how a production built on family ties must scramble when those ties fray. The presence that mattered, Matt Brown, was, for many viewers, a line of continuity. He arrived on screen carrying the everyday textures that reality television loves: work routines, family disputes, tender private moments that seem to spill over into the public realm. Whether he was helping with a home project, taking part in family dinners, or appearing in the more fraught, emotionally charged episodes that became ratings drivers, Matt's presence was steady, almost anchoring. For producers, his steadiness was a gift, an authentic thread around which arcs could be woven and against which conflict could be contrasted. So when Matt's participation waned and then ended, it wasn't just a personnel issue. It was a narrative problem. Cast dynamics changed, plot lines that had been built around his role had to be reworked. The show, which had once traded on the illusion of seamless continuity, exposed its seams. The moment of disappearance. The transition did not happen overnight. At first, Matt's screen time diminished, fewer confessional moments, less involvement in key family scenes, an increasing number of cutaways to other relatives. Viewers noticed. Social media began to buzz. Where once there had been a steady stream of family updates and candid footage, there was now a conspicuous absence. What followed was a slow, uncomfortable drift into rumor and inference. Fans parsed every public post from remaining family members, dissected timing and tone, and tried to stitch a narrative out of small, often contradictory clues. Instead of an official statement that clarified the situation, the vacuum filled with speculation, disagreements with producers, personal struggles, a desire for privacy, or more sensational theories, amplified in comment threads and late-night message boards. For the show's creative team, this was a nightmare scenario. Reality programming relies on availability and authenticity. When a cast member goes quiet, producers face both ethical and logistical dilemmas. Do you reconstruct episodes to explain the absence? Do you address it on camera, risking airing private matters publicly? Or do you keep the cameras focused on what remains, letting viewers draw their own conclusions? The network response and the art of controlled messaging. Networks and production companies have playbooks for many things, but not always for the intangible fallout of a disappearance that sits somewhere between personal choice and public interest. In this case, the response was cautious. A brief, carefully worded press line acknowledged that Matt would not be appearing in upcoming episodes for personal reasons, and asked for respect for the family's privacy. It was the type of corporate soothing language designed to draw a curtain across messy real life. That short statement did little to quell fan curiosity. If anything, it intensified it. In the absence of detail, audiences filled the gaps, often projecting their anxieties and assumptions. Social feeds filled with long threads of speculation, pundits dissected production choices. The show's comment sections alternated between supportive messages for the family and thinly veiled accusations that something more dramatic was being concealed. Ratings and narrative consequences. Any change in cast can alter viewership patterns, but Matt's disappearance coincided with an observable shift. Early episodes after the announcement, or rather the non-announcement, showed a dip in live viewership and an uptick in delayed streaming. Fans who had tuned in every week seemed less compelled to watch the show in real time. Some suggested that without the figure they felt most connected to, the show had lost its heartbeat. But numbers only tell part of the story. Creatively, the show's producers had to make hard choices. Some scenes were re-edited to minimize the sense of absence, others were reshot or supplemented with voiceover. Producers leaned into other family members, attempting to re-anchor the series around additional characters and new subplots. These adjustments bought time, but they also changed the tone. Scenes that once felt intimate began to take on a different cadence, more scripted, more cautious. The show's editors and story producers were suddenly in the paradoxical position of having to manufacture candidness while respecting, or at least appearing to respect, privacy. The more polished the edits, some viewers argued, the less they resembled the real moments that had originally captivated them. The show's claim to authenticity was increasingly under scrutiny. The social media sleuths and the rumor mill. If there is anything that modern audiences cannot abide, it is opacity. When networks offered little, fans went hunting. Social media turned into a kind of private eye operation. Timeline reconstructions, geography-based inferences, and interpretive readings of emotional subtext in the remaining cast posts. The rumor mill churned stories that ranged from plausible to conjectural to outright implausible. This period also produced collateral casualties. People close to the family, friends, former collaborators, even acquaintances, found themselves pulled into the conversation, whether they wanted to or not. At times, the conversation crossed into invasive territory. Demands for private photographs, speculation about health issues, and even threats. Those excesses underscored a recurring ethical question about reality TV culture. To what extent does public appetite for authenticity justify intrusion into the very real private lives that audiences consume? For the family, the barrage of attention was a second kind of trauma. Navigating grief, tension, or simply the desire to step back from cameras becomes infinitely harder when any minor action is magnified through commentary. Some cast members began to change their posting habits, share fewer personal details, or step away from social media altogether. Others adopted a different strategy, offering rare, tightly controlled glimpses that managed curiosity while controlling the narrative. Beyond the emotional and creative fallout, Matt's disappearance had practical implications. Contracts for reality shows are notoriously complex, and cast changes can trigger a cascade of legal and financial adjustments. Schedules had to be reorganized. Episodes already in post-production required re-editing. The insurance and liability calculations for shooting logistics, especially for a show that often involves remote locations and risky tasks, had to be revisited. Production sources, when willing to speak anonymously, suggested that casting discussions accelerated behind closed doors. Who could fill the gaps? Which relationships could be amplified to retain viewer interest? How would future story arcs be structured around less stable cast dynamics? These are not merely creative questions. They determine budgets, marketing strategies, and the viability of a show's renewal. The ripple effects of this kind of disappearance do not stop at the production office. The show had become part of a larger cultural landscape. Memes, think pieces, and late-night segments riffed on the absence. Some commentators use the moment to probe deeper themes: the ethics of commoditizing family, the pressure of public exposure, and the loneliness that can accompany fame. For many devoted viewers, the show's earlier seasons had felt like a ritual, comfort TV that also delivered occasional jolts of drama. Matt's disappearance transformed that ritual into a reminder that television's permanence is an illusion. When a key player steps away, some family members reportedly supported Matt's decision, whatever it was, and emphasized that mental health, privacy, and personal well-being mattered more than a television paycheck. That message resonated with some viewers, who applauded the family's choice to put people before programming. But others remained dissatisfied, hungry for a fuller account. The ethics of storytelling. What the show's producers learned is one of documentary television's oldest lessons. You can't ethically exploit vulnerability for entertainment without consequences. When a cast member withdraws, particularly under ambiguous circumstances, the moral calculus shifts. Producers must weigh the impulse to monetize the moment against the responsibility to treat human beings with dignity. Some critics argued that the show had, over time, blurred lines between observation and orchestration, making it harder for audiences to separate genuine private pain from produced drama. The controversy surrounding Matt's disappearance amplified those critiques. It forced an industry-wide reflection on where responsibility lies, with editors, networks, or consumers who demand unfiltered access. In the seasons that followed, the show found ways to survive and even to thrive in new directions, but it never returned to its original shape. Storytelling became more ensemble-driven. Marketing leaned into topics that could be explored without invoking the missing player. The ratings stabilized, though the demographic profile of the audience shifted. Long-term viewers who had tuned in for the old rhythms often did not return, replaced by newer viewers drawn to fresh conflicts and narratives. Perhaps the most lasting change was cultural. The disappearance reopened public conversation about the human cost of fame. It prompted other reality TV participants to speak more openly about boundaries and mental health. It pushed some production companies to review policies around off-camera support, privacy protections, and the duties owed to cast members who may be in distress. For a show that marketed itself on the intimacy of family life, Matt Brown's mysterious disappearance was a test of institutional ethics, creative resilience, and the sometimes corrosive hunger of an audience that wanted answers. The story did not resolve neatly. It resists tidy explanation. But the absence itself, the way it was felt, discussed, and ultimately integrated into the show's ongoing life, says something important about the modern media ecosystem. In the age of pervasive visibility, silence can be louder than any confession. What remains clear is that television is a conversation among producers, participants, and viewers. When one voice drops out of that conversation without clear resolution, the dialogue changes. The show adjusted, the family adjusted, and the viewers eventually adjusted too. But the memory of that absence lingered, a reminder that behind the cameras are real people whose choices and struggles do not always resolve into the neat narrative arcs that make for easy viewing. The show kept going, but it was never quite the same. What happened with Matt Brown didn't just stay within the show's ecosystem. Entertainment media began running stories, some sympathetic, others speculative. Tabloids framed the absence as scandal. Lifestyle writers approached it as a case study in burnout. Mental health advocates saw an opportunity to talk about the psychological toll of reality television and the difficulty of staying on for years at a time. The funniest thing about disappearance stories is that while they are rooted in a single person's private life, the cultural meaning becomes collective. Everyone starts using the absence as a mirror for their own interpretations. And so, Matt's departure became something larger, a debate about privacy, consent, and the right to walk away from a job, even if that job made you famous. Inside the fanbase, confusion, loyalty, and division. The fandom split into factions. One group believed the family and the network had done the right thing by keeping details private. They saw restraint as a sign of respect and urged others to stop digging, stop demanding answers, and allow the family space. A second group felt betrayed. To them, reality TV is an agreement. Viewers invest emotionally, and producers owe transparency. They argued that when a major cast member vanishes, an explanation is not exploitation. It's simply acknowledging reality. A third group took the mystery as a subplot in itself, treating the absence like a detective story to be solved. They searched archives, old interviews, and production schedules. They compared filming dates, traced Instagram likes, and tried to uncover clues through indirect social media connections. Some fans reached out to cast members directly. Some sent messages of love and support. Others demanded they tell the truth. The pressure was intense enough that a few family members disabled comments entirely. This was the moment when producers realized the disappearance wasn't going away. It had become a living part of the show's mythology. The burden placed on remaining family members. Matt's siblings and relatives found themselves in a strange bind. Anything they posted, no matter how innocent, was interpreted as a comment on the disappearance. A cheerful photo sparked accusations of hiding something. A somber caption triggered new waves of speculation. If they appeared too happy, people claimed the family had moved on. If they appeared too quiet, fans claimed they were covering something up. Even worse, some viewers tried to turn family members against each other. A harmless disagreement on screen suddenly became proof of a falling out. A missed birthday post became evidence of a feud. Social media, once used to build fan connection, became a minefield. Privately, producers worried that the harassment would scare other cast members into stepping back as well. They were right to worry. Several relatives later said publicly that fame had come to feel exhausting, invasive, and unpredictable. The show under a microscope. One of the strangest side effects of Matt's disappearance was that it unintentionally exposed parts of the production that had always been invisible. Fans began scrutinizing editing cuts, airtime distribution, lighting, camera framing, trying to decipher whether the show was actively hiding something. Every time a character's sentence was cut mid-thought, viewers suspected censorship. Every time a story jumped to a new scene without closure, forums called it proof that something was removed. Even neutral production decisions took on a conspiratorial tone. The show was not used to this level of forensic audience analysis. Reality TV thrives on suspension of disbelief. When viewers stop believing, the whole structure wobbles. The network's turning point. Behind the scenes, executives faced a hard truth. Ignoring the disappearance wasn't working. Silence had magnified the mystery. Viewers had become more obsessed, not less. So the network tried a different strategy. They didn't release a full public explanation, but they began acknowledging the emotional consequences in subtle, carefully controlled ways. Certain episodes allowed other family members to speak in general, non-specific terms about change, about difficult times, about supporting each other. Nothing explicit was said, but empathy was shown. Some fans appreciated the gesture. Others saw it as avoidance. But the tone of the conversation softened just enough for the show to move forward.